Hello everyone. I am Dr. Arti Chandani, Professor, Jaipuria Institute of Management. Today we are going to learn about time value of money. In time value of money, first we are going to talk about future value of money. Now when we talk about future value of money, it is required that whatever money we have, if we are going to calculate what will be the value of the money in some future, that could be after 5 years, 10 years, given the rate of interest. So when we talk about calculating the future value, we are going to get a higher value in future. The reason for this is that first, inflation comes into picture because the value of money keeps on decreasing with the passage of time. Second, there is an opportunity cost available with all the investment. And third is there is an element of risk. Whenever you are investing somewhere, there is an element of risk. So all these factors put together gives us the interest rate. So we are going to be compensated whenever we are investing for that investment. So interest rate is our compensation for that. So if I am having 10,000 rupees today, if I am going to invest that for a year and given the rate of interest is for example 12%, I am going to get 1200 rupees over and above. So that means the value of money after 1 year will be 11,200. So this is how we calculate the future value of money. So first is when we talk about value of money, there are two ways. First is we calculate the value of money which is lump sum. That means I deposit money in one go. So if you can see here, the example says that if you deposit 85,000 rupees for 7 years and you can earn an interest of 9%, what would be the value of that amount? That would be 1,55,383 as you can see here. The formula what we use here is P, which is the present value, multiplied with 1 plus I. I is the rate of interest, which is 9% in this case, and we raise it to the power n. N is number of years. In this particular example, it is 7 years. So this is how we calculate the value of a lump sum. Now let's talk about value of annuity. Now first let's understand what is annuity. Annuity is the amount which is being either deposited or paid at regular interval. Now there are two types of annuity. One is ordinary annuity, another is annuity due. So ordinary annuity is at the end of the year, while annuity due is the beginning of the year. So for example, if I say I want to deposit say 5 lakh rupees every year and I am planning to deposit that money for 10 years. So it becomes an annuity because I am having 5 lakh rupees in my mind that I will deposit, and since I am saying I will deposit it every year, so it becomes annuity. So I am interested in knowing the value of that money after 10 years, 20 years, whatever is my time period. So annuity, there are two conditions which are required to be met or for an amount to be called as annuity. First, frequency is the same. If I am saying I am depositing 5 lakh rupees, I have to deposit at a particular time. It cannot happen that once I deposit in the month of January, then I deposit in the month of May, or then again I go back to August. It cannot happen. So if I am saying I am going to deposit money, it has to be same day, same month. So if I say I have decided I am going to deposit money on 10th April. So every year 10th April I am depositing the money. So frequency which is annual, it is the same. And amount has to be same. I can't change the amount. So if I start with 50,000, I need to continue with the 50,000. If I am saying I am going to deposit 2 lakh rupees, I have to continue with that. So in order to classify any amount as annuity, these are the two important things which are to be kept in mind, that is frequency as well as the amount. So now let's understand how do we calculate the value of an ordinary annuity. If you remember, as I mentioned, ordinary annuity is the amount which is being deposited at the end of the year. So if you look at the screen, I have given you an example here. So if you are depositing 20,000 rupees for 3 years. So first that it is given 20,000 rupees, which is the amount is same, and it is going to be at the end of 3 years. Now what would be the amount if it can earn the rate of interest at 12%? So I have given you a picture also, which is a timeline. So if you see here, there are 3 years. So we are starting with time period 0 at the end of the year. But I am going to deposit which is 20,000. Then again after 2 years, which is 20,000. So at the end of 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, every year I am depositing 20,000 rupees. So this is the case of annuity. Now I am going to show you how do we calculate the future value. That means if you look at it, this is like 60,000, 20,000 rupees deposited for 3 years, which is 60,000. But what would be the value of this money given the rate of interest of 12% after 3 years? So now if you see again, I have calculated it on the timeline. If you see, we are depositing the money at the end of 1 year. So when you deposit this 20,000 at the end of 1 year, it earns the interest for the next 2 years. So I am applying the formula of giving it interest for 2 years, which is like 20,000 into 1 plus I raised to the power n, which we just saw. So here 20,000 into 1 plus I is 12%, n is 2 years because we have to give 2 years interest. So the amount becomes 25,088 rupees. Then comes the next year, which is like end of second year. So when I am depositing at the end of second year, the amount is actually earning interest only for 1 year. So for 1 year, we are again giving the interest. So for 1 year, amount is 20,000, 1 plus I is 12% raised to the power 1 because 1 year interest. So the amount becomes 22,400. Then comes the last year, which is the third year. Now this is the third year when I am depositing, but mind it, this is the terminal year. When I say terminal year, this is the overall duration of my deposit. So when I am depositing here, I am not going to get any interest here. So the amount is actually 20,000. So now what we are going to do, we are going to add these three amounts, 25,088, 22,400 and 20,000. So the amount becomes 67,488. Now if you recall, we have deposited how much? 60,000. Now future value has to be always greater than the present value. So 67,488 is greater than 60,000. So you are saying that it is right, my future value is increasing. So this is how you calculate the value of ordinary annuity. I am showing you an alternative way in which you can also calculate, which is like using the simple interest formula. But normally we try to avoid simple interest. But for understanding, I am just showing you what goes in the background while we calculate this value. So I have given the values in the form of a tabular form. Now here you are depositing 20,000 rupees at the end of 1 year. So the total duration for which it earns the interest is 2 years. And it earns the interest for 12%. So at the end of 1 year, what happens? This 20,000 has earned interest for 1 year as of now, because only 1 year has passed till now. And it becomes 22,400. And again at the end of 1 year, you are depositing 20,000 more. So now the total amount becomes 42,400. Now this amount is being kept, or you are staying invested there. So at the end of second year, which is the amount you are having 42,400. Now this earns again the interest for the 1 year, which is 1.12. Now this amount is there, which becomes 47,488. And now amount is being carried. Now again you deposit 20,000 here, which is like terminal year, which is third year. And this amount again does not earn interest. So your value becomes 67,488. So if you see this value and the value which I showed you earlier, both are the same. But these are the two different ways to calculate the future value of annuity. Now this is easy to calculate given that we were having 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Imagine a situation when you have to calculate the annuity for 10 years, 15 years, or for that matter, it can be even for 50 years, 100 years. How do you go about calculating manually? So it becomes difficult. Then we'll have to come to a formula, which I am going to show you now. Now, if you look at this, now this formula, what we are doing exactly the same thing what we have done manually. We are having A is the value of the annuity. Then plus A plus 1 plus I raised to the power 1. So we are going backwards. So the last installment, if you remember, 20,000 did not earn any interest. Then the first last but one earned the interest for 1 year, which is A 1 plus I raised to the power 1. The first year installment, which we saw earlier, was earning interest for 2 years. So this is the way in which it keeps on going. So we can have any number of years. But please remember that whenever there's a last, if you can see here, it is n minus 1. So if you remember the earlier example which I showed you was having 3 years as the duration, but we gave the interest only for 2 years because the last installment does not get any interest. Therefore, we have to use this formula. And what we are trying to do now, we are using geometric progression. We are going to simplify this formula because again, it is very difficult if n becomes 100 or maybe even 150. So it becomes very difficult. So what we are going to do, we are going to further simplify the formula. So if you see here, what I have done in this formula, I have taken a, which is a common factor. So I have come to a equation which is 1a. Then I am trying to identify the common factor which is 1 plus I. So I am multiplying equation. When I am multiplying, I have to multiply both the sides. That means left side and right side. So I am multiplying it 1 plus I. So I get the equation 2a. So when I am getting the equation 2a, if you see the last value, it is not n minus 1. It has disappeared because I have multiplied. Now I am going to subtract the equation 1a from 2a. Then I am getting 3a. Now further I am going to simplify 3a. So now the equation which I am going to get, the future value equation is, future value is equal to a, 1 plus I raised to the power n minus 1 whole divided by I. So now this is the formula which we are going to use it for our calculation. So you need not remember all this formula. It's just that the last formula which I have showed you, this is a formula you should remember. But I am going to show you this so that you understand what is happening in the background. So now future value of annuity formula is given here. Now using this formula, we can calculate again the future value of annuity. Now this is the formula which I have just shown you. I have shown you the derivation actually of this formula. But most of the books you will get this formula only directly. So you can use simply this formula. Now we are going to talk about ordinary annuity. Ordinary annuity is annuity at the end of the year. Now I have given you another question. For example, if you want to invest 25,000 rupees at the end of 20 years. Now this is year end bonus. Now imagine when you are joining a company, when you are going to get the bonus. I am not going to talk about the joining bonus. I am going to talk about performance bonus. And performance bonus comes only at the end of the year. So that means you're joining, let's take a simple example. You are joining on 1st of January and your performance is being evaluated every year on 31st of December. So your performance bonus will be coming to you only on 31st of December. So what happens in this case, your performance bonus, you will get 25,000 at the end of year. So you have planned that whenever I get this performance bonus, I am going to invest it. And you imagine that I am going to work there for the next 20 years. And I can earn 15% interest on this amount. So now this is a case of ordinary annuity. Your tenure starts from 1st January, but actually you are depositing only at the end of the year. So 25 years. So that means if you imagine the timelines, the 0 year, that is first year installment will come only end of year 25,000. And the last installment, which is the 20th year, that is your terminal year. That means the closing year. And that is where you get 25,000. So last installment of 25,000 is not going to earn any interest. So using that formula, we are going to calculate the value. So if I'm using that formula, the answer is there in front of you, which is 25,61,089 rupees you are going to get if you are going to have future value of the annuity. I hope this is clear. This is understandable to all of you. Now let's move to another example where we talk about annuity due. Now there could be a situation. As an investor, when I'm going to deposit money, I will deposit the money at the start of the period. So when I'm starting money at the start, which is known as annuity due. So in that case, what I have to do, I have to use the same formula. The only difference is that I have to add 1 year's extra interest. How do I do that? So using the same formula, I multiply that with 1 plus I. That means I am giving that 1 year's additional interest. If you remember that in the previous example which I showed you, the last installment doesn't get the interest because the amounts are being deposited at the end of the year. Now here what I am saying, As an investor, if I deposit money today in my bank FD or in mutual fund, wherever, I start expecting the return from the same time because the money has been deposited today. So it is the start of the period which is known as annuity due. So I will use the same formula and I will multiply it with 1 plus I to give 1 year's additional interest. So this is how value is being calculated. So I am taking the same example. You are going to get year-end bonus, 20 years, 25,000 rupees. Rate of interest again is the 15%. But I am asking you that you can assume that if you are depositing the money at the beginning of the each year. So how the amount will be calculated and what would be the difference in the amount? So you can see the answer is 29,45,253. So now if you compare this answer bigger than the earlier one, which was earlier was 25 lakhs 61,089, and now the answer is 29,45,253. Now the difference comes because 1 year's additional interest is being given. So this is how we calculate the future value of annuity. Thank you. I hope you have understood. Please feel free to reach out to me in case of any questions or any query. Thank you once again.